Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful that we could find a way to meet together today to discuss as a group. Pray and ask that we have the Spirit with us, that we'll be able to learn from each other and learn what we're supposed to do from this lesson. And I say these things.
Amen.
Carly, I found that ending to the rollers.
Okay, then I'll hand it over to you. That works. Okay, welcome everybody. Glad you go. So first let's start out. Does anybody get a summary of kind of what we read and over? No one?
You guys hear that echo? Was it just me?
No, I hear the echo.
Yeah, because I couldn't really hear what you were saying, Charlie.
Not sure what. Let me go out and see if that'll work. See if this stop the graph. Is that better?
I still hear a little bit of an echo.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, well, I don't know what to do then.
Hey, Wesley, the echo didn't start until you hopped on. So can you mute it to see what happens?
Yeah.
Just to test it.
How do you mute it?
Testing. Is everybody still hearing echo?
Yeah, a little bit.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Not sure then.
I mean, we probably can make it work. We're just going to have to be careful that not two people don't start talking at the same time.
Well, I don't hear it now.
Yeah, it's good for now, at least on my side.
Yeah, same
Yeah,
here.
now I hear no echo.
Poor Leslie.
All right, well, let's get started, and we'll just kind of play with it and see what happens.
Cool.
Okay, so just to kind of give a quick synopsis of the case, we talked about the Army crew team with the United States military. They're talking about how they're facing a dilemma to get a team performance. Talked about how at the beginning of the season, the coach used objective data on individual performance to select his top 8 rowers for the varsity crew team and the second tier of 8 rowers for the junior varsity crew. Obviously, when the two crews race one another at practice, the JV beats varsity 2/3 of the time. And then the rest of the case follows the coach's attempts to determine the cause of these results. By the end of the season, the varsity was still mired in a downward spiral with only 1 week to go for the season. And we got left off that the coach must decide what action should take, what he should do concerning the varsity crew and the members and what he should do to for the race coming up. So, I mean, obviously, we're gonna ask the question is, what's the issue?
I think for me personally, when there was a coach that said good coaches look for players that can work well together, and they look more psychologically at the players versus just their talents, and there must be some type of teamwork, because if they're all stronger, there must be something else that's wrong, and then what must be wrong is that they're not working together, because with being in a crew, they have to be really good at working together. So that must be wrong, unless you guys have another idea. What could be wrong?
Well, I mean, I think, I don't know if this is this question or it's going to answer a future question, but I think that each person on the team kind of wants to point the finger at somebody else, rather than everybody accepting that they need to work together. There's not really any unison.
I think there's a lot of undisclosed problems. I mean, if they're all they should be able to work together as the best. You see how when they first started their first meet, when they were first put on the team, they beat the JV. And then just about, every time after that they started to lose. That's when the problems started to appear. So we know they're better, but there appears to be problems going on that just haven't been fixed.
What I found interesting was that when some of the varsity people went to the JV team, the JV team did even better. So I wonder if there's like one or two bad eggs on the varsity team too.
I think it was interesting that it points out that all the varsity rowers, I mean, obviously they're the best. They're the best 8 out of the 16. I mean, they're the strongest. They're top-notch and other things, but working together as a team, I think that's really weird and different. That, well, if you can all work together, or you all are great at things, why can't you all work together? Especially when he said, if they're going to go down to the JV team, they work fine as a team there, so why don't they work fine as a team when they're in the varsity?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's my point with the whole, I think there's issues in the group itself compared to when they go to the JV, they all work together, they're terrible because they have problems they haven't addressed with each other, and it's making them all work, not in sync.
So what would you guys do to fix the varsity team?
Well, I don't know if switching it up is necessarily the solution, because although the JV team might be beating the varsity team periodically, I don't think that speaks for the quality of the JV team. I just think that shows how poorly the varsity team's performing. And so if they've got another meet or a tournament or whatever they call it, if you were to put the JV team in place of the varsity team, I think they would just get destroyed just because the talent's inferior. So I think, I don't know, I thought maybe if the coach were to either bring somebody in to try to because I think he's just struggling to get them all to connect, and it seems that they have all got an attitude issue. So to find some way to improve their attitude, or maybe single out that one bad egg and get rid of him, but to switch up the two teams, I don't think that would. It might help with the contention between teammates, but I don't think that would help them win against other teams.
Well, they talked about how bringing a varsity rower down, JV crew would go even faster than what they were before. So we know that there's a talent difference, but I think it's just a matter of them trying to figure out how to make the varsity actually work together. Because every time one came down, they were faster. They made the JV better.
Yeah.
Because the JV player is not nearly as good as the varsity, and they're all out of sync anyway.
So maybe some team building exercises would probably be the best thing for the varsity team, so they can actually learn how to work together.
I agree with that, in the fact that I think that they almost need to have a meeting of okay, obviously there's some problems here. We all need to not hash it out, but discuss what the problems are. Why are they not working? Things like that. I mean, in the story, it talks about how they were trying to bring in some people for I don't know if it was a team building exercise, but then all the varsity people were like, oh no, this is fluffy, feely things. They just didn't want to do it.
I might have read over this part, or maybe it didn't mention. This is more a question, but is Coach P the coach for both the varsity and the JV team?
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
Got
so.
it.
When he works hand in hand with him.
Okay.
Never
mind
Can
that.
you guys remind me? Was he debating to switch the team for an upcoming like championship match, or was it just a normal match? I can't remember.
It was a championship.
It was.
It was to
okay.
get it into the championship.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because my first thought was going to be switch them and let the varsity eat some humble pie, and then switch it back. But I agree also that these guys need to work on some team building exercises. And that was kind of my argument when I wrote the case study is all these tests that they look at are based on individual, for the most part, individual performance. I even went on and researched like the 2-seat races, the 4-seat races to try to figure out continuity. And there's a lot of indiscrepancies on how well that works. So nobody really looks at the psychology of, are these people able to gel as a team? And so I think team building exercises would have been great even at the beginning of the season.
So that's a great
Absolutely.
point. It talks about does he have the right place to measure how the people perform, and is measuring individually gonna affect the team building? Does that make sense? So like, should he take out the measuring individually and just focus on the team aspect, or should he focus more, or should he keep the individual aspect as well as the team?
I think that if he wants to put such a focus on like
Could you run this
individual,
in like 3 minutes?
I think if he wants to put such a strong focus on like individual abilities, then the coach is missing the picture, because although that's important, if it's equally as important for them to work together and row in unity, then he needs to also put some sort of, I don't know, some sort of program in place to help them all get along and work together and do something to build some sort of like camaraderie, or I don't know, competitive edge where they all want to work together. Because I think in rowing or in crew, it appears to be just as important that they work together as they are talented.
Yeah.
What's the next question?
What measures should be added when finding the team? What measures should he include that he hasn't? I think one of the things that comes first off my mind is some sort of leader, trying to figure out who's a leader, because in the case it talked about how there wasn't any leader, how they were all followers. I think maybe at the beginning of the camp or whatever, do some sort of activity or something that shows who the leaders are, and then, or at least be a leader.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a person who keeps the tempo, right? He's sort of like the leader. So maybe a way to grade him, because he might not be doing a very good job. If they're all better and they're losing to JV, so it might be a lot on him. Not doing a very good job.
Okay. The next question is, what changes, if any, should Coach P take to rectify the situation for the upcoming finals? So should he not change anything and hope for the best? Should he mix up the teams, or should coach the varsity team to do better?
I think he should just make it better, the varsity team. There's something wrong. He needs to learn how to fix it. What do you guys think?
I don't know. I think the coach is still holding on to the idea that when he first put this group together, destroyed in that first race. So he knows they all have the ability to be better. So I think he struggles with the idea of taking that apart because there's conflict. I think he really just wants to figure out what the conflict is and resolve it.
Anybody else?
I think that's a good point.
I guess my thought is
Because
I gotta go.
I don't know for a while.
Sorry.
sorry. I was going to say, with my thought is that if I was the coach, what's my long-term plan? Do I think this team can actually win if they do come together? If not, I don't know. I might try to focus a little bit more on the future and change the way I actually have a team, pick a team for next season and learn from my mistakes from this past season. That's only if I don't think these guys are good enough to win.
That's true.
Well, I can't remember who it was in this discussion that just said, it was probably 5 or 10 minutes ago, but they said that maybe to kind of switch the two teams to give them a piece of humble pie. But I wonder if the coach has even given that as presented that as an option, because maybe even just letting the varsity team know, look, if you guys can't find a way to work together before this match or this competition, then I'm going to switch you guys because you won't win even if you are the better team because you can't get along. So maybe trying to approach it that way and kind of giving them that ultimatum might put a little pressure on them without completely switching the two teams.
I think that's a good
That's a
idea.
good point. Good work.
But then again, if they're also so prideful that they want to point the finger, it might not work at all. So who knows?
Yeah.
So what do you guys think of the I don't know if it was where everybody was giving critiques of your individuals, and then so the JV team did a lot better with critiquing, not placing blame on somebody, but doing it as a whole compared to the varsity. They would point fingers, I guess.
I don't know. I think that
Go ahead,
I
Rob.
think the JV just figured it out early on that, if you're going to get better as a team, you got to work as a team the whole time. Whereas I think the varsity, they just all became their own person instead of a team. They put the I in it doesn't belong, and it didn't work until they had to fix it. But the JV never did that. The JV, every problem they had, it was the group's problem. Even though it might have just been one individual, they made it a group thing, and it kept them together.
I thought about how there were some younger people in the team. When in high school, whenever when you are in a row up, or you move to each grade with the same team. Does that make sense? The same certain people are on the same team. So do you think that maybe that was mixed up because of, like you said, there were some younger people in the group, and so there is some hate or some being upset with the other people in the group? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm not sure how long they were together but they obviously were together long enough to create some wedges in between their relationships. So they decided that it was all about individual performance and not a team. And I think that also goes back to how the coach graded what would make a good team. He did it mostly off of individual things. They did no teamwork exercises or tests to find out if these people were actually team players or if they were just selfish. And I think that goes into trying to do a personality test or anything like that to see how selfless the other teammates could be.
Well, I know at the beginning of when they were pairing the people together, they did talk about how they took one or two guys off, even though they were stronger, they took them off the varsity because when they put them with the team, day or week or whatever it was, that they couldn't work together. Whereas the original varsity, they did a good job until they came back. I mean, once they left that camp or whatever it was, all of a sudden there were issues and they trickled down, and then the JV was better. But the JV never really got faster. The varsity just got.
Well, the last thing, it just talks about share how the actual event turned out. You have that, Brock?
Yeah, so what the coach ended up doing is CNN posted it. It said he lined up the crew, put them in 4 pairs, and he had each of them wrestle. There was no punching, but they were a piece. And then they go, and eventually got to the point where people just pick each other out, decide who they have their problem with. And they'd fight. Anyway, and then they all started to laugh, became a big brawl, and then they finished, looked at the coach, said, we're ready to go. And they went out. Did great. All it took was a little bit of fighting.
So they just put him out there and just let him fight and let him go at it?
So everyone had a partner. They'd fight that partner for 90 seconds. Once that was over, he'd move the pair. Eventually got to the point where they were out. They'd go at it for a while, and then became a big brawl, and then they finished, laughed, and got back in the boat.
Wow.
Well,
And it goes on to say in that article, they don't recommend that you do that for executive team members, but for them.
No?
But yeah, all it took was, a few fists, and it worked.
Interesting.
I'm sure that probably wouldn't work.
I think that big brawl could have been replaced if they learned how to communicate with one another and got rid of their issues when they came up rather than balling it up. Because what it sounds like is they just had all this bottled up aggression and just laid it all out on the table and just fought each other to get rid of it. So I think that comes into teaching proper communication skills and how to deal with conflicts rather than bottle them up.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, there are probably small problems at the beginning, but no one wanted to talk about it. And then the coach just finally figured that, you're a bunch of guys, fight it out, figure it out, and when you're done, let's go.
Yeah.
So, no, I completely agree. If they would learn how to talk and communicate with each other like the JV did the whole time, they would have been a different team all season.
Yeah. The last thing, it asks if any of the principles we read from this lesson applies to this case.
Say that one more time.
The reading that we did for this lesson, if any of that reading applies to this case. So talking about some of the behaviors like extending trust or keeping commitments, listening first, accountability. I think it all applies to this case.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like everything you're talking about does.
I think obviously you need to have trust, you need to have communication like we were talking about. If they just communicated in the first place, we wouldn't have to have this fighting or this brawl. I think being accountable, I think if you make a mistake, I think you should own up to it, but then I think that the other team should understand that you made a mistake, but that you owned up to it, and so they shouldn't hold a grudge over you, or they should let it go. Talks about expectations. I mean, maybe at the beginning of the camp, they should have had a sit down and, okay, well, these are the expectations, and is everybody going to meet them, and what are everybody going to do to help make the team better?
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Anything else anybody wants to say about the case? Any dying comments you want to make?
No.
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
Who wants to be the leader next week? I can potentially do it, but I will give this is my wife's 9 months pregnant, so
Ooh.
I could be having a baby next week. I don't know. So that'd be the only thing that pops up or pops out, I guess.
If you end up having your kid, if you don't mind, I mean, I assume if you don't mind taking a minute to send us an email, and then I can do it if you're not able to.
Yep, perfect. Sounds good. So are we planning
And
on
then-
Wednesday still, or what are we doing with that?
Wednesday sounds good.
Okay. Sorry, Wes, I cut you off.
So what time?
I'll make a list. I have a list for everybody. Well, at least for who's supposed to be in charge. I'll put you guys down on it. I'll put James down as the person in charge. If that doesn't work out, Ethan will do it.
And then if we're going to do Wednesday, I thought I mentioned this, but hopefully we can make it work. I've just got class at 11:30 every Wednesday. So if there's a way we can meet just a little bit earlier than 10:30, that would help with me. Otherwise, I'll just have to leave a couple minutes early.
I think let's just start at 10.
Yeah, 10 works for me.
Okay,
Well,
so 10 on
no.
Wednesday.
Cool.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect.
All right,
Sounds good,
see you
guys.
Have a good weekend.
See ya.
Bye.